What if your encrypted files can be quietly unlocked by someone else holding a copy of your keys? That's exactly what happened with Microsoft and the FBI. In early 2026, court documents revealed Microsoft handed over BitLocker recovery keys to federal agents, allowing them to decrypt suspects' Windows devices in a fraud investigation. The encryption was strong, the math was solid, but Microsoft had to weigh in because it was quietly storing copies of the keys. In this video, you'll discover how that happened, why your own recovery key might be sitting on Microsoft's servers right now, and what it means for your privacy. We'll expose what BitLocker really does behind the scenes, and show you exactly how to take back control before someone else unlocks your data for you. Microsoft introduced BitLocker Drive Encryption in 2007 as a professional security feature designed to protect data on lost or stolen devices. The company marketed it as full disk encryption that locks down your entire hard drive, making files completely inaccessible without the correct credentials. For years, BitLocker was available primarily on Windows Pro, Enterprise, and Education editions. But with Windows 11, Microsoft expanded a consumer-facing version called Automatic Device Encryption to home users. The official goal was simple: protect users from data theft if their laptop gets stolen, their hard drive is removed, or their device falls into the wrong hands. BitLocker uses industry-standard AES encryption with 128-bit or 256-bit keys, which is genuinely strong encryption. The feature is supposed to work silently in the background, encrypting your files as you use your computer, and requiring either your PIN, password, or a hardware security chip called TPM to unlock the drive when you boot up. To help users who forget their password or lose access, Microsoft created a recovery key, a 48-digit number that acts as a master unlock code. And here's where the real issue begins. Microsoft gives you several options for where to store that recovery key, including saving it to your Microsoft account in the cloud. That cloud backup option is what security researchers and privacy advocates have been warning about for years. And in early 2025, those warnings became reality. Investigative journalist Thomas Brewster at Forbes broke the story in January 2026, revealing that Microsoft had handed over BitLocker recovery keys to the FBI during a fraud investigation in Guam related to COVID unemployment assistance programs. The FBI requested access to 3 encrypted laptops that they believed contained evidence of a scheme to steal public funds, and Microsoft complied after receiving what the company called a legitimate legal order. Court documents reviewed by Forbes showed that without Microsoft's cooperation, federal agents would have been unable to decrypt the information at all. A forensic expert linked to ICE's Homeland Security investigations stated in a 2025 court filing that his agency did not possess the forensic tools necessary to bypass BitLocker's encryption without the recovery keys. This marked the first publicly confirmed instance of Microsoft providing BitLocker keys to law enforcement, though the company acknowledged it receives approximately 20 such requests annually. Privacy expert Jennifer Granick raised alarms about the scope of access these keys provide, noting that once the FBI has BitLocker recovery keys, agents gain access to the entirety of a person's digital information, far beyond the scope of most investigations. She stated, "We have to trust that agents only look for information relevant to the authorized investigation and do not take advantage of this windfall to rummage around." Now, you might be thinking, I never gave Microsoft permission to store my encryption key in the cloud, so I must be safe. But here's why that assumption could be dangerously wrong. Starting with Windows 11 version 24 H2, which began rolling out in 2024, Microsoft made automatic device encryption the default behavior during clean installations. If you set up a new Windows 11 computer or reinstalled the operating system and signed in with a Microsoft account during the setup process, BitLocker was automatically enabled and your recovery key was automatically backed up to Microsoft servers without any explicit separate consent step. This happens silently during what Microsoft calls the out-of-box experience, or OOBE, and many users never realize their hard drives are encrypted or that their keys are stored in the cloud. Microsoft spokesperson Charles Chamberlain told Forbes that while key recovery offers convenience, it also carries the risk of unwanted access, and the company believes customers are in the best position to decide how to manage their keys. But the problem is that millions of users never consciously made that decision at all. The recovery key is backed up to what Microsoft calls the Recovery Keys Library of your Microsoft account, accessible through a web portal that you can log into from any device. While you can delete the key from Microsoft servers after the fact, most users have no idea it's there in the first place. Even more concerning, if you buy a new laptop from a manufacturer, BitLocker can come pre-configured with the key already in Microsoft's possession. Independent security researcher Jason Sirocco from Sectigo explained to ZDNet that Microsoft presents this as a lawful process issue rather than a backdoor problem. but the practical effect is the same. A third party holds the keys to your encrypted vault and will hand them over under legal pressure. The revelation triggered immediate reaction from privacy advocates and lawmakers. Senator Ron Wyden expressed strong concerns to Forbes, stating it is irresponsible that tech companies ship products in a way that allows them to turn over encryption keys to law enforcement. He added that allowing agencies like ICE to obtain users' encryption keys secretly grants them access to the entirety of a person's digital information, which poses significant risks to users and their families' safety. The Electronic Frontier Foundation and other civil liberties groups have long warned about the dangers of key escrow, where third parties hold copies of decryption keys. Security expert Jennifer Granick noted that this practice creates a fundamental trust problem. Users must simply hope that government agents will only search for information relevant to their authorized investigation and won't abuse the windfall of total access they receive. While no major regulatory action has been publicly announced as of early 2026, the practice raises serious questions under data protection frameworks like GDPR in Europe, which requires that encryption keys be managed in ways that prevent unauthorized access. Organizations that handle protected health information under HIPAA regulations face particular compliance challenges, since cloud-stored recovery keys may conflict with requirements for exclusive control over encryption keys protecting patient data. Privacy compliance experts at Jetico noted that organizations subject to GDPR may face compliance issues when relying on encryption solutions with cloud-stored recovery keys, and should consider alternatives that ensure exclusive key control. The human impact of this vulnerability extends far beyond theoretical privacy concerns. Imagine a domestic violence survivor who has escaped an abusive relationship and is rebuilding their life in a new location. Their laptop contains saved addresses, job applications, therapy notes, and communications with their attorney. If that person becomes involved in any legal matter, even as a witness, or in an unrelated civil case, a court order could compel Microsoft to hand over their BitLocker recovery key, potentially exposing their new location and sensitive personal details to parties involved in the legal process. Consider a journalist working on an investigative story about corporate malfeasance or government corruption. Before sending encrypted communications to sources, their laptop captures drafts, notes, source lists, and research materials. With a BitLocker recovery key stored in Microsoft's cloud, a subpoena in a completely different matter could expose confidential source identities that the journalist had promised to protect. For medical professionals, the risk is equally serious. A therapist who stores session notes on their encrypted laptop might believe patient confidentiality is protected by both HIPAA regulations and BitLocker encryption. But if the recovery key sits in Microsoft's cloud, a legal order in an unrelated investigation could force disclosure of those notes, violating the therapeutic relationship and potentially patient privacy rights. Even business professionals face exposure. An entrepreneur developing a new product stores trade secrets, customer lists, and proprietary research on their Windows laptop, assuming BitLocker protects that intellectual property. But if they become involved in a patent dispute or regulatory inquiry, opposing counsel could potentially access that entire treasure trove of confidential business information through a recovery key request. These aren't paranoid fantasies, they're realistic scenarios based on the actual legal framework that governs third-party key escrow systems. After the Forbes investigation became public in January 2026, Microsoft's response focused on user choice and legal compliance, rather than changing the fundamental system. Spokesperson Charles Chamberlain told ZDNet that with BitLocker, users can opt to keep their encryption keys locally in a location that Microsoft cannot access, or in Microsoft's cloud, emphasizing that the company allows users to determine whether to use key escrow and how to manage their keys. Microsoft maintained that it only provides recovery keys when legally required by valid court orders, and that the company scrutinizes legal requests before complying. However, the company did not announce any plans to change the default behavior in Windows 11 24H2 that automatically backs up recovery keys to the cloud during setup. Privacy-focused analysis from Jetico and Hoplon InfoSec revealed what remains problematic even after Microsoft's clarifications. First, the encryption itself is strong, but the key management system fundamentally undermines that strength by creating a third-party access point. Second, while Microsoft describes the cloud backup as optional, the default behavior during Windows installation makes it effectively automatic for millions of users who don't understand what's happening during setup. Third, even users who are privacy conscious may not realize their keys are in the cloud until it's too late, because the backup happens during initial setup without a clear, separate consent screen. Jason Sirocco told ZDNet that while Microsoft frames this as a transparency and legal process issue, the practical reality is that your entire digital life can be accessed by law enforcement through what amounts to a 48-digit number stored on Microsoft servers. Perhaps most concerning, Security researchers noted that the recovery key protection is only as strong as your Microsoft account security. If your Microsoft account uses only a password, or even a password plus SMS-based two-factor authentication, that 48-digit master key to your encrypted hard drive is protected by far weaker security than the ACE ES256 encryption it unlocks. If you want to regain control of your BitLocker recovery key and remove it from Microsoft's reach, here's exactly what you need to do. First, check whether your recovery key is currently stored in Microsoft's cloud by going to the Microsoft Account Recovery Key portal, sign into your Microsoft account through a web browser, navigate to Devices, select Manage for the device in question, scroll down to the BitLocker Data Protection section, and click Manage Recovery Key. If you see your recovery key listed there, you need to back it up locally before deleting it from Microsoft's servers. To create a local backup, open Settings, click System, then Storage, then Advanced Storage Settings, then Disks and Volumes. Select your encrypted drive, choose the option to back up your recovery key, and save it to either a USB flash drive as a text file or print it as a physical document. Security expert Jason Sirocco recommends keeping a printed copy in a home safe or safe deposit box, along with an additional copy in a password manager. Critically, never store the USB backup with the computer itself, and never save the recovery key file on the same encrypted drive it unlocks. Once you have secure local backups in at least 2 separate physical locations, return to the Microsoft account portal and delete the recovery key from the cloud. For advanced users who want to completely prevent automatic BitLocker enrollment on a fresh Windows installation, you can disable it during setup by pressing Shift plus F10 at the region selection screen to open a command prompt, running regedit, navigating to HKEY_machine/system/current control, set /control/BitLocker, creating a new DWORD value named Prevent Device Encryption, and setting its value to 1. Alternatively, create your installation media using Rufus, which offers a simple checkbox to disable automatic device encryption during the setup process. If you prefer not to manage recovery keys yourself and want encryption without third-party escrow, consider privacy first alternatives to BitLocker such as VeraCrypt, which keeps all keys under your exclusive control and involves no cloud backup systems whatsoever. Your files, your emails, your photos, everything you think BitLocker is locked away are only as private as the systems and companies that hold your keys. Strong encryption doesn't help if someone else can be compelled to unlock it for you. If this changed the way you think about encrypted data, take a moment right after this video to check where your BitLocker recovery key actually lives and decide whether you're comfortable with that. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more investigations into how big tech and governments really interact with your data, and share this with at least one person who assumes their laptop is truly locked. And tell me in the comments what you discovered about your own device, because understanding where your keys are is the first real step toward owning your privacy.